We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, season number 4, episode number 10. As man, we're finally in the fall, man. This is some of the best time of the year as far as the sport landscape is concerned. First and foremost, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. If this is your first time listening, man, I appreciate the follow through and the check-in. Man, don't forget, man, check us out also, too, on YouTube, man. We got the YouTube situation jumping off with We on Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot. Also, too, on Twitter, man, at We on Fire Sports. And we're going to jump right into this thing, man. Is that obviously we got the National Football League jumping off with week number 6 over the weekend. Been some big news out of New York. We had the firing of Robert SALEH. Nice little can job by the New York Jets. Robert SALEH, first NFL head coach to get his head cut off on the guillotine so far this season. Jets, 2-3 on the year. There was a lot of speculation of who team this is, between him and Aaron Rodgers. Obviously SALEH met his fate. And to me, I can't blame Robert SALEH for all of this. I mean, Robert SALEH, former defensive coordinator, more notably for the San Francisco 49ers a couple years ago. This guy's a good defensive coach. And if you look across with the New York Jets, I mean, their defense has been good all season pretty much. Last week they had a million penalties, though, on the back end from the secondary standpoint. But overall, as a unit, they've been playing some good football so far this year. Been holding teams under the dub most of the season so far. And I just think that Robert SALEH is an scapegoat. I just think that for me, the whole problems with the New York Jets is on the offensive side of the football. I mean, Aaron Rodgers look like an old man walking right now. He's not making good football plays, making bad decisions. And at the end of the day, it's always a dice roll when you bring in any athlete in any sport that's 40 years old to your team. It's going to be up and down. Obviously last season, started off not starting off for him, obviously having the Achilles injury. And, we had the situation with him missing mandatory mini camp, for the New York Jets. And I knew then when I saw that was a red flag for me. Because at the end of the day, when you're a quarterback, any athlete, you're coming off an injury, you got to have your ass in camp, man, at the end of the day. I mean, to me, it's just more so one of those situations where, you want to ingratiate yourself with the teammates. They got some new, pieces over there, say in New York, and so I just think that the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, this whole drama, this guy's a diva. He's been a diva from day one. And this not, what I call a big-time shot at Aaron Rodgers, but it is what it is. I mean, we've seen other quarterbacks go down this same little road with Tom Brady a couple years ago with the Tampa Bay Bucks, going down to Tampa in this first season, bringing them a Super Bowl trophy. And, this was during the time of COVID where everything was locked down and shut down. And, this guy was, practicing at the public park down in Tampa, where they had to kick him out of the park. This guy ingratiated himself to his teammates, showed real hard work ethic, physically as well as mentally with Bruce Arians, the head coach at the time for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And to me, when I seen Aaron Rodgers missing these camps and going over to Egypt and all of this, and I'm just like, this guy still don't get it. One, dude, you really another big-time injury away from it being all over. You got to enjoy these times with your teammates, man, because you at the end of the spectrum. And so I just think that kind of rolled into the season a little bit. And Robert SALEH, got his head chopped off on the guillotine for it. Now, the ironic part about this team is that, their game out of first place. They played the Buffalo Bills this weekend. I think that that game against Buffalo is a game that I actually have the Jets favored, and I'll get into the whole slate of week number 6 in the NFL just in a little bit. But they got the ability to have first place in the AFC East. And I think that at the end of the day, especially with them basically showing the offensive coordinator the door in Hackett, I'm like, man, what are we doing? And so I think the Jets, they hit the panic button, maybe a little bit too soon for my liking in regards, but that's the business of the National Football League. We've seen this many times over before. And so we'll see what the Jets do moving forward just in this situation, but definitely had to get into that situation. The NBA is back. We got preseason jumping off. Got a chance to check out a few teams off the preseason slate. definitely got coming up down the pipeline, man. Got my NBA preview show where we're going to break down all things NBA. On the side note, so that definitely be coming down the pike pretty soon for you guys before we jump off the NBA season. But there's one thing that I've noticed in the NBA. And obviously, I just mentioned the National Football League. They obviously are rating kings across the whole sporting landscape. The NBA and Adam Silver, they've been trying to come up with creative ways across the NBA to try to improve the popularity of the sport. Obviously, with the in-season tournament, definitely shout out again to the Boston Celtics winning the NBA championship last year. And we've just been checking out the preseason slate, and one of the stories out of the preseason, this whole LeBronny James and LeBron James thing. So I'm going to go ahead and bring out the soapbox at this point. Go ahead and just kick game just how I feel about that whole situation. And those who followed me before, definitely listened to the show before, kind of knows my stance about this whole situation. But I'm going to go ahead and jump it back off again. I think it's disgusting. And wait a minute. I don't want to hear, he played with my son and, playing with the son, and that's great and all of that. And that's cool. But on We On Fire Sports Podcast, The Spot, we keep it 100 over here. And to me, this is just a basketball analysis. I wish Bronny James, LeBron James Jr. the best, just in regards. But this young man is not an NBA player. This young man does not deserve to be on the NBA floor right now at age 19. Now, the convenient thing on this whole situation was he could have just stayed his butt in college. He obviously had the option of going back to USC, which those who've been out to California, just as myself, visited the campuses of USC and UCLA. It ain't a bad atmosphere for a college student. Obviously, money is not a factor with this young man, so he hadn't had to make some of the decisions that some, guys before him had to make jumping into the NBA just a little bit early. But this is nepotism at its highest degree. And I don't want to hear about it as nepotism and other lines of business and all of that. At the end of the day, the NBA is a pay sport, meaning that patrons pay to watch these guys play. Obviously, you can watch it at home for the free. But for the most part, it's a sport that, they need revenue from the customer. And so at the end of the day, he's been straight trash so far. I just think that they're putting this kid in a spotlight that to me just simply not ready for. I mean, he's got a lot of things, say, from his dad over the years, obviously, some of the athletic genes, but one of the genes he didn't get was the height. And this kid is a 6'1" guy. And to me, he just can't handle the basketball as far as being a point guard at that size. And definitely when you at that size and you're not a ball handler and a guy that can run sets and get teams into offense, you got to either be able to play big time defense and you got to be able to knock down shots. And so to me, he's not been able to knock down shots. He's been a turnover machine. I think he's a little overrated as far as defensively is concerned. And so, I'm not one of those that's just going to give out a participation trophy in this whole situation. I'm going to call it straight how it is. Now, do I think he has a chance to be an NBA player one day with going down to the G League and getting some real hard, training and coaching and tutelage? He has a chance. But as we speak here right now, nah, man, the time that you get on the floor and an opportunity to play in an NBA game can easily be given to another person who just has a little bit more accomplishments and just in a more ready situation to take on that task. And I just don't see it. And, the Lakers, at the end of the day, man, this is an organization that I've been at odds with from a standpoint of, they just want to, entertain folks and not in a basketball way with all the side stories. And obviously this is the first year of J.J. Redick being the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. I wish him the best. I just don't see it in this situation for them. And so we'll get deep into the NBA as far as how I feel about the outlook of the season, about the Los Angeles Lakers, also too the other teams across the NBA in regards. But I definitely had to speak my piece on that. Also, we got the WNBA Finals jumping off, and what an outstanding game by the Minnesota Lynx. Currently, right now, they're up 1-0 over the New York Liberty, coming back from 18 points in game number 1. What an outstanding game. That is the biggest comeback in WNBA Finals history, by the way. And they've just been playing outstanding. Now, obviously, I'm a big fan of Breanna Stewart for the New York Liberty. I think that, coming into this series, they have an outstanding chance of trying to win the WNBA championship. But Kalia, man, from the Minnesota Lynx, man, she is just outstanding, just two-way player, man, dropping 21 points, playing some outstanding defense. Huge 4-point play, man, to take this thing into overtime, getting them off the mat. You know, their next SLATE game, number 2, is going to be on Sunday. You're going to get a chance to kind of take a quick peek at that. You know, obviously, it's, the football weekend SLATE. So I'm definitely going to take a little quick peek at the WNBA situation going off in game number 2 in that series. So I'm definitely stoked about that because game number 1 was a straight-up classic. Obviously, we got the baseball playoffs jumping off. You know, you got the ALCS. Congratulations to the New York Yankees getting into the ALCS. You know, the league championship series, they're still to be determined. So we'll get into that, you know, once we do get that SLATE jumped off in the ALCS and the NLCS. We obviously got college football this weekend jumping off. There's some good matchups jumping off. Colorado coming off a bye. They got a huge matchup against Kansas State just in that one. I think that's going to be a real good football game. And so you also, too, got the battle with 2 Big Ten teams. One of these teams is, you know, freshly minted into the Big Ten, and that's Ohio State, ranked number 2 in the country. Oregon, ranked number 3 in the country. That is going to be a game I'm definitely going to check out just to get a look at those 2 ball clubs. Obviously, we had Alabama, you know, taking an L last week to Vanderbilt. They was number 1 in the country. They got knocked off. So I think that SLATE is wide open. Speaking of number 1 in the country, we got the Texas Longhorns and the Red River Shootout taking on the Oklahoma Sooners. That's going to be a big-time football game. Always a huge rivalry game, saying that one. I think Texas may roll Oklahoma, but I don't know. Those games are played tight. I mean, Texas is a 14.5-point favorite in that football game. I think it's going to be played a little bit closer to the tilt than that one. You got Penn State traveling out to Los Angeles to take on USC. They're number 4 in the country right now. So we got some good matchups, man, across the college football SLATE as we get down the road and say they season. Can't wait till we see the first unveiling of the playoff situation as far as the rankings is concerned. That's coming down the pike. And so, man, we got a nice little SLATE across the weekend, across the sporting landscape. Once again, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. Coming up, my look across the National Football League, week number 6. We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot. Welcome back. In the National Football League, we go into week number 6. This is part of the season where teams separate a little bit. There's been a lot of things going on across the National Football League outside of the lines. But we're going to take a look at week number 6 coming up here on this weekend SLATE. It all jumped off. Thursday night football, San Francisco 49ers took on the Seattle Seahawks. And first, I'm going to say this, man. A couple years ago, Thursday night football, man, the schedule, they had games that were straight dud games. You know, me in particular, I didn't have a lot of interest in the Thursday night games because they were just straight garbage teams that played on Thursday night. But I had to tip my hat to the National Football League. They've stepped up as far as scheduling is concerned. And this SLATE between the Niners and the Seattle Seahawks, a divisional matchup, is always a good football game when these two teams lock horns. And the Niners, they was able to win this game 36-24. And for the Niners, it was a situation where, you know, they was behind the 8 ball a little bit. Now, this is a team that I predicted to win the Super Bowl this season. I thought that the time was now for John Lynch, general manager in this organization, to take that next step and bring home a Lombardi trophy. Last time this team won was with, you know, Steve Young and Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders in the mid-90s. So it's been a long time since the Niners have raised that trophy for the Super Bowl champions. And for me, you know, I was looking keenly in this game because this was a game that was played in Seattle. I thought that it was real key for the Niners just to kind of get the ship back right. Obviously, we got C-Mac still out, and I thought there was some pressure on Brock Purdy as far as the offense is concerned to kind of get this offense pointed in the right direction. And they did, putting up a 36-piece, winning this game 36-24. I thought that offensively, you know, everything went well. We obviously had the injury to Jordan Mason. And, you know, looks like he's got a shoulder injury. We'll see what it looks like for him moving forward. He's definitely been outstanding since taking over for C-Mac since he's been out. And they still was able to run the football in this game, the 49ers was. I thought that the defense played real good, especially in the first half of this football game. Looked like Seattle's offense was stuck in the mud. Geno Smith, he's an up-and-down guy. He's always been an up-and-down rhythm guy. When he's feeling the rhythm, he can easily go out there and throw for 400 yards. But when he's off rhythm, he makes mental mistakes. And we saw this in this football game. And Seattle turned the ball over a couple times via interception. And the Niners, they just grinded this game out. And I thought this was a huge, huge win for the 49ers. They came into this game 2-3. The Seattle Seahawks started off the year on fire, first couple weeks of the season. But now they've scaled back just a little bit. So we'll see what this does moving forward for Seattle. Both these teams presently right now 3-3 on the season at 500. I think the arrow is more so pointing up for the San Francisco 49ers. As I mentioned earlier, it was a big win for them. I just think that they have one of the best coaches in the National Football League. With Shanahan, I think he still has a lot to prove, obviously, from finishing the job, winning the Super Bowl. But, this was a game, especially when Jordan Mason went out. They still was able to run the football, and the offense was still able to get the ball downfield. So, shout out to the Niners in this game. And then we transition early, man, what I call breakfast football, as we still have the continuance of the London series across the pond up in London. This one I will be checking out. It's got my Chicago Bears taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game's been played at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, 6:30 if you're on the West Coast. And the Bears, arrows pointing up for the Bears, man. Bears currently 3-2 on the season. We're finally seeing Caleb Williams playing as advertised. I think one key thing for the Chicago Bears was simply being able to run the football and being able to keep Caleb Williams clean. I do think that this defensive unit is one of the best units in the National Football League. But I think on offense, there's some room to grow. And we've seen some growth over the last 3 weeks, especially the last 2 weeks in particular, where Caleb Williams, he hadn't turned over the football. He's making good timely plays. I mean, the throws that he had to DJ Moore last week was outstanding, man. I mean, it just shows what type of talent this guy has in his arm. And I think for the Bears, obviously, it's a long travel for both teams going over to London. I just think it's a litmus test for them to be able to try to keep that winning ways going forward for them. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's a team that got their first victory last week. They was the last winless team in the National Football League until last week. There's been a lot of heat on Trevor Lawrence. And I just think that with Trevor Lawrence in this offense, I think at the end of the day, they hadn't been able to really run the football. Travis Etienne really hadn't been playing well. They've been getting a spark out of Tank Bigsby. I think he's been playing some outstanding football and provides a punch for them. Shout out to Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie from LSU. He's a guy that I had, high expectations going into this season. I thought that he was one of the stout wide receivers in the NFL draft. And so I think with Jacksonville, their offense is straight garbage. Their defense is straight garbage, and the offense simply haven't been playing up to standard. But I think they're trending in the right direction as far as the offense is concerned. I still think this defense still has a lot of holes in it. I think that the Chicago Bears are capitalized on that, especially with their offense, playing some good football over the last couple of weeks. And I got the Chicago Bears, man, being victorious in this game across the pond up in London. Point spread in this game is a 1 point spread, which to me is basically a pick 'em. I think the Bears are simply a better football team than the Jacksonville Jaguars. No disrespect to Duval County, but I just think that the Bears are just at a higher plane right now. As we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I got the Bears moving on in this one. Then we got the 1 o'clock slate. We got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Green Bay Packers. Arizona, to me, coming in this game, they 2-3 on the season. The Packers are 3-2 on the season so far. I think that the Arizona Cardinals, man, they've just been an enigma, and they've just been up and down. Kyler Murray, outstanding talent. I think just pound for pound talent wise, he's at the upper crest of quarterbacks in the National Football League, but he's just been inconsistent. He has been inconsistent, and that's been the whole story of his career so far in the NFL. For every good game that Kyler Murray has, he has games where he's on a milk carton and he's turning the football over. And I just think that the Arizona Cardinals also, too, for them, I think they need to kind of go back to the basics just a little bit on offense as far as running the ball to James Conner. Obviously, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., which I think is going to be an outstanding young football player in the National Football League. I think they got to get him a little bit more involved, more so in the short and intermediate throws. Obviously he can take the top off of defense. He's just a big physical receiver. And I just think for them, they just been just inconsistent, man, each and every week, up and down, like the Down Jones, man. And so for Green Bay, obviously we had Love come back. Jordan Love come back last week off the injury. He looks like he's back on Jordan Love mode. Been playing some good football for them. I think for the Packers as well, I think they need to get more into their running game. I think that'll be a little bit more fruitful for their whole situation with Josh Jacobs. Obviously Jaden Reed, the wide receivers, he's had a good season so far for them. And so I just think that for the Packers, they've been playing some good football on the defensive end, especially on the turnover side. It looks like every time I watch this team play, they always get a turnover via like interception. Not sure about their pass rush. I think their pass rush is at kind of the bottom crust of the National Football League. But as far as their secondary is concerned, they've been making some plays so far this season. The Packers come into this game as a 5-point favorite as far as the spread is concerned. I think it's a little bit closer to that. Only reason I say that is because Arizona, man, every time they come off a bad week, they always come back and fight back the next week. I think this game may be a little bit closer than advertised. But I got the Green Bay Packers, man, knocking off the Arizona Cardinals. This game will be played up in Lambeau Field. Then we got the Indianapolis Colts taking on the Tennessee Titans. This game will be played at Nissan Stadium up in Nashville. The Colts coming to this game 2-3. Titans coming to this game 1-3 on the season. This is an AFC South divisional matchup in this slate. And these two teams, man, they're kind of hard to put a finger on, man, to be quite honest. The Indianapolis Colts lost Anthony Richardson. He's been out the last couple of weeks. My man Joe Flacco coming in, being substitute teacher. He's been having a good, substitute stint in this situation. I still was surprised that, he even got signed by the Indianapolis Colts. I thought he was going to stay put in Cleveland after the playoff run that he had last year with the Cleveland Browns. And these two teams are kind of an enigma. I think pound for pound, I think the Colts probably have a little bit more talent on the offensive end than the Tennessee Titans. And it's been the story of Will Levis, man. Will Levis has been a turnover machine, just straight up untimely turnovers, which has killed the Tennessee Titans. I think they could easily be better than 1-3 on the season so far. The defense from the Titans is actually a little better than advertised. You got Simmons on the defensive line. I think he is outstanding. And I think they're a better defensive unit than advertised. This game, as far as the spread is concerned, Tennessee is a 2.5-point favorite at home. But to me, this really is a pick'em game, to be quite honest with you. To me, I got the Colts winning this game. I'm not sure if Anthony Richardson is going to suit up for this one. I think, to be honest with you, the Indianapolis Colts, they better serve with Joe Flacco. I think at the end of the day, you have some young quarterbacks who come to the National Football League. Everyone's not the same. I mean, some of these guys, you have to let them sit a year or two, man, to kind of get their bearings underneath them. And I think Anthony Richardson is a prime candidate for that. Outstanding raw talent from this young man. But I just think that Joe Flacco really is the kickstarter to the Colts offense. Also, too, to be able to push the ball down the field. Joe, every time he hit the football field, man, he trying to get the ball downfield. And so, for me, that's enough for me to pick the Colts in this game. I just think they just got a little bit more offense, say, than the Tennessee Titans do presently. And I think they win this game up in Nashville. Then we got the Houston Texans taking on the New England Patriots. This game is going to be played in Foxborough. The Texans coming in this game 4-1 on the season. The Patriots 1-4 on the season. And now we got the debut of Drake May, first round pick of the New England Patriots, making his first start out of the University of North Carolina. And we got C.J. Stroud on the other side. The Texans, they've been a little stifled in the run game. Obviously they've been having some injuries, more notable for Joe Mixon. And to me, C.J. Stroud, even though he's in his second season, he plays with a veteran moxie to him. And I don't think he's played his best football so far this season. If you ask me, I kind of give him a C grade on the season so far for C.J. Stroud. I do think that this offense, to me in this game, I think they kind of break through a little bit, especially from the C.J. Stroud perspective. I think he plays a better football game this week than he did last week. The New England Patriots, surprisingly, like I said, they're moving on from Jacoby Brissett and bringing on Drake May to be the starter. I think the Patriots defensively they're a better team than advertised, than their record would say. Gerard Mayo in his first season for the New England Patriots, he's got this team on a good plane as far as defensively. The offense has been straight garbage. I mean, they've had one of the worst skill position rooms in the National Football League. I think that will continue. I think that Drake May, taking on the Houston Texans, who to me have a pretty decent defense. Just don't think this is the week to start this kid. The Houston Texans is actually a 6.5-point favorite. I think they have one of the highest point spread favorites during this week of week number 6. And I'm going to stay in line with that. I think the Texans win this game. I think they also, too, cover the spread in this game, man. I think they travel up to Foxborough and knock off the New England Patriots. Then we got another divisional matchup. We got the Tampa Bay Bucks taking on the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay coming in this game 3-2 on the season. We got the Saints 2-3 on the season. The Saints, more notably, they out without Derek Carr in this football game. He's out with a strained oblique. It looks like it's going to be a couple weeks for him to come back. We got starting Spencer Rattler, just in his starting situation for him for the New Orleans Saints. And this was a team through the first 2 weeks of the National Football League. They looked like they was the best team in the league. I mean, Alvin Kamara was playing outstanding football. He's still playing pretty well. Shaheed has been playing pretty well for them. I think Chris Olave, he has to step his game up. He hadn't really been playing good football so far this season. He's just been kind of so far this season. I think that for me, the Saints, it's going to be a defensive football game for them, meaning that the Tampa Bay Bucks, especially with Baker Mayfield, they got a powerful offense, meaning that definitely if the Saints is in a situation where they're turning the ball over with Spencer Rattler, I think that plays right into Tampa Bay's hands. I just think that Tampa Bay is a little bit too much for the Saints right now, especially without Derek Carr. This game is going to be played at the Superdome. It looks like Tampa is a 3.5-point favorite in this football game. And I just simply see them marching down to New Orleans, getting a nice little cup of gumbo and knocking off the New Orleans Saints in this one in the NFC South matchup. Then we got the Cleveland Browns, man, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles up in Lincoln Financial Field up in Philadelphia. The Browns are coming into this football game 1-4 on the season. The Eagles are 2-2 on the season. We got the return of A.J. Brown back into the fold for the Philadelphia Eagles. Devontae Smith as well looks like he's going to play on Sunday. I just think that for both of those guys, and for the offense, it is key. They're trying to circle the wagons for Nick Sirianni up in Philadelphia. I just think that for me, especially with Philly being a 9.5-point favorite in this football game, that is crazy. And that lets me know just how people feel about the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson has been a shell of himself. There's been a lot of cries to bring in Jameis Winston as starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And I can't argue with that. I cannot argue with that. I think that at the end of the day, if I'm Cleveland, if I'm the brass up in Cleveland, I give Deshaun Watson another week. I just think at the end of the day, for him, you're paying him that huge bag of money, the huge over $200 million guaranteed. You got to try to ride that out as much as you can. I mean, to me, with the season being at 1-4 in the year, this is really a make and break game for him. I do think that the Eagles win this football game at home. I just think that when you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith coming back, I think the Philadelphia Eagles offense and Jalen Hurts is just going to be a little bit too much for the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland on the offensive end, they're not running the ball real good, but part of that really has been they've just been playing catch up in all these games. So they've been off what we consider normal game script, and I just think the Philadelphia Eagles, they win this football game. I'm not sure, though, if the Eagles cover the spread in this football game, though. I'm not sure if they're able to cover the spread, which is basically 10 points, but I do think they got enough firepower, man, to knock off the Cleveland Browns, man. And so I got Philadelphia marching on in that one. Then we got a game, man, it's must-see game. We got the Washington Commanders taking on the Baltimore Ravens, traveling down to Baltimore, taking on the Ravens. We got the Commanders 4-1 on the season. We got the Baltimore Ravens 3-2 on the year. Lamar Jackson has gotten this team off the mat the last couple of weeks. He's been outstanding. I mean, that game last week went to Cincinnati Bengals, man. I mean, it was a straight Madden type of game, man. I mean, just the plays between him and Joe Burrow was outstanding, man. And just Lamar Jackson, he like a magician out there on the football field. I think this offense for the Baltimore Ravens is finally peaking up. We had Mark Andrews getting off of Milk Carton in this game. He had a couple catches. Like I said, Lamar Jackson doing this thing. Derrick Henry, big run towards the end of that game as they was able to knock off Cincinnati in overtime last week. But I think this is a marquee game, man. We got Jaden Daniels. There's been a lot of talk about Jaden Daniels being the MVP of the league and all of this. And I'll tell folks for one quick second, man, we just need to slow down with that. And there's no knock against Jaden Daniels. I think he's an outstanding talent. I think the future is very, very bright for him up in Washington. But I just think that he's kind of feasted on teams that hadn't really been in line defensively. I do have to put some respect on Cliff Kingsbury's name. He's been outstanding as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. Just his ability, obviously being a former collegiate quarterback, they pretty much have keeping it simple. From a perspective of Jaden Daniels, not asking them to do too much, taking the shots downfield with Terry McLaurin when it's necessary, and they've been connecting. And so this is a tough one for me, but I just think that the Baltimore Ravens win this football game. Baltimore is pretty much a 6.5-point favorite in this game. I just think it will be in line with that. One thing about a rookie quarterback, you really test this metal, man, when you play these road games, especially once we get the first month out of the season. I think the Baltimore Ravens, their defense has been straight garbage so far this season. But to me, you look at their roster defensively, they got them guys over there in Baltimore, man. Madubuike and Hamilton and Humphrey. So they have guys. It's just, to me, schedule's been tough for Baltimore. I mean, they probably had one of the toughest schedules in the National Football League through the first month of the season. I think this defense will be primed for Jaden Daniels. I think that they let a little bit of that air out of the balloon for him. And I got the Baltimore Ravens winning this football game against the Commanders. Then we got another divisional slate. Out in the AFC West, we got the Chargers taking on the Denver Broncos. Both of these teams, the Chargers 2-2 on the season, just fresh off a bye. The Denver Broncos 3-2 on the season. Denver last week, man, they had a 100-yard touchdown reception by Patrick Surtain. And I just think that this defense from the Broncos has been playing some outstanding football. They've been a top 5 defense so far this season. And I just think that a lot of people would think that Sean Payton, obviously, offensive guy, that the offense would be above the defense, and it's been the opposite way around. This team is very, very grimy on the defensive end. I think Bo Nix is finally starting to kind of get some of the kinks out of being a rookie quarterback in the NFL. From the Chargers perspective, you got Justin Herbert. You got Harbaugh trying to play Harbaugh football. Actually, the Chargers are favored in this game, which will be played out in Denver. I don't know about that. I actually got Denver winning this football game. I just think the defense is on one. They just been making plays so far this season, man. Timely plays, too, on the defensive end. I think they just make enough plays on the defensive end, man, to knock off the Los Angeles Chargers up in Denver. Then we got a classic matchup, man. If you're old school, man, you go back to the 1970s in the National Football League. This used to be one of the grimiest rivalries in the NFL. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling off to Las Vegas to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. And the Raiders, last couple of weeks we've been having this whole deal with Devontae Adams wanting to get out of there. He's not going to play in this football game. We got on the opposite side with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we got Russell Wilson lurking. But it looks like, for right now, they're just going to kind of hold pat with Justin Fields at the quarterback position. Mike Tomlin is a grinder. Pittsburgh is a 3-point favorite in this football game. They have an outstanding defense. I think the defense has been kind of carrying the torch so far this season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't really have any confidence in the Raiders and their offense. I just think that, they just been kind of back and forth. Looks like O'Connell is going to be the starting quarterback for the Raiders as they're moving on from Gardner Minshew. And, Antonio Pierce, man, it's one of those type of situations where hope this man ain't lost his locker room. But so far, the Raiders are 2-3. They got a chance that they win this game and knock off the Raiders to get to 500, which is huge, say, for the Raiders. I just can't go against Mike Tomlin and the Steelers. I just think they'll be able to figure it out. They've been having kind of a lull the last 2 weeks for them. But I think they'll be able to figure this out, man. They travel out to Las Vegas, man. I think they knock off the Raiders in this game. In another game, which is kind of in the prime slate on Fox, we got the Detroit Lions taking on the Dallas Cowboys as they travel down to Dallas to take them on. These are two teams. A lot of people coming into the season thought that these two teams may have a chance to play, in the NFC Championship game this season, especially from the Cowboys' perspective. Obviously the Detroit Lions was just there last year. I mean, they literally had the San Francisco 49ers on the ropes in that NFC Championship game, but we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there. It's a new season. The Lions coming into this game 3-1 on the season, fresh off a bye. The Dallas Cowboys 3-2 on the season. In this game, Detroit is a 3.5 point favorite in this football game. I think this is a make 'em or break 'em week, say, for the Cowboys from a standpoint of, obviously we got Parsons out. You got some injuries on the defensive side of the football. I think if they can kind of hold serve, and Dak, putting the cape on this week, say, for the Dallas Cowboys, they definitely have a chance in this game. I'm just rolling with Dan Campbell, man, and the Detroit Lions in this one. I just think that obviously them coming off a bye, I think they're able to reset the table just a little bit just on their end. Like I said, they're 3-1 on the season. And so I just think that they'll be able to travel down to Dallas, be able to control the line of scrimmage, especially running the football. And so I just think that the Detroit Lions will be able to pull this one out. Like I said, Dallas, for them, definitely don't want to go 500 on the year if they lose this football game. But I just think that right now the Lions are just a little bit too powerful for the Dallas Cowboys. But we'll definitely see what it do. I think that this game may be a close game into the fourth quarter, but I got the Detroit Lions going down to Dallas and handling business against the Dallas Cowboys. Then we got the Atlanta Falcons, man, next slate, traveling up to Charlotte, man, to take on the Carolina Panthers. And, the Panthers 1-4 on the year. Everybody knows this is really a rebuilding year. Andy Dalton, showing some flashes of old school Andy Dalton, but, that's week to week for him. For every great game he has a terrible game. I think for the Falcons, for them, this is a big test for them on the defensive end. Meaning that they've been a team, they brought in Matt Judon via trade from the New England Patriots just to kind of add some pressure on that rush. And I just think that so far they're still in the bottom half of bringing pressure. They do got some pieces a little bit on the defensive end. On the offensive end, Kirk Cousins, he's been playing some good football the last couple of weeks. I think they do need to incorporate Bijan Robinson just a little bit more on the offensive end from the Atlanta Falcons perspective. The Atlanta Falcons is a team, they 3-2. They can easily be 2-3. They got the gift that keep on giving from the Philadelphia Eagles a few weeks back, just in regards. I just think that the Falcons have too much talent for the Carolina Panthers. The Falcons are 6-point favorite in this football game. I think they're able to knock off the Carolina Panthers as well as cover that point spread, man, in this NFC South matchup. Then we got Sunday Night Football. We got the Cincinnati Bengals traveling up to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the New York Giants. The Giants 2-3 on the season so far. Giants and Daniel Jones the last, 2 weeks, he's been playing some decent football. Those who follow the podcast know I'm not a fan of Daniel Jones. I think this guy is a backup quarterback in the National Football League. Obviously Malik Neighbors was out last week for them, but they played some good football. So I got to tip my cap to the New York Giants, from last week perspective. Cincinnati Bengals, man, it's just been a year of frustration. The offense has been outstanding. Joe Burrow last week probably played his best football game in the National Football League last week. This defense has been straight garbage. I think that this team knows that you go 1-5, it's over. And I just think that they play with a sense of urgency. I think they'll be able to finish their food this week and knock off the New York Giants. Cincinnati a 4-point favorite in this football game. I just think that this team just has too much offense for the New York Giants. The Giants, they'll be able to perk up a little bit on the offensive end. As I mentioned earlier, the Cincinnati Bengals defense has been straight garbage. But I just think that the Bengals just have too much firepower for the New York Giants. I think they travel up to New York/New Jersey, man, and knock off the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football. And then the final game of the week. We got the Buffalo Bills traveling to East Rutherford, New Jersey. Same location, same MetLife Stadium, taking on the New York Jets, who is 2-3 on this season. There's been a lot of talk across New York about the whole situation with Robert Saleh, as I got into a little bit earlier. The firing of him, and just whole situation with Aaron Rodgers, man. This guy's looking like a 40-year-old quarterback, as I mentioned earlier. He just, I just don't think he's the same guy anymore. And to me, that's, we've been spoiled across the NFL, man, seeing, guys like Tom Brady, guys like, say, maybe a Peyton Manning, several years back, be able to switch teams and just keep the boat afloat and push this team up into to Super Bowl contention. I don't think that verdict is over. Obviously, in this game, the ironic part about it is that the Buffalo Bills haven't been playing good football over the last couple of weeks. Josh Allen has been looking terrible the last couple of weeks. And I think we're finally seeing the remnants of them, one, losing Diggs and losing Gabe Davis. At the end of the day, Josh Allen has been an outstanding talent so far this season. But you need horses, man. And so when you got rookie guys, like Coleman, then you got Shakir, who I think they're good talents. I just don't think week to week they're going to give you that consistency to be able to knock teams off as, Buffalo would like. Obviously this is a divisional matchup, and this is a game that actually is for first place in the division. Meaning that the Jets win this game, they win, they get first place in the division. We got Buffalo, a 2.5 point favorite in this football game. And I actually got the Jets in this football game. A lot of people, obviously, they had a head coaching change, and there's been a lot of, heat on Aaron Rodgers. I just think that, for me, the Jets, they still got a good defense. I don't think that has been the issue for them. They've just been having a lot of slow starts on the offensive end. I just think their defense is just too much for the offense of the Buffalo Bills right now. Unless Josh Allen puts on the cape and have one of those remarkable games, which he's definitely capable of having, I just don't see them being able to knock off the Jets. Definitely with the Jets defense, I think it's going to be another rough week offensively for the Buffalo Bills. And so I got the Jets knocking off the Buffalo Bills in this football game. And that's my across week number 6 in the National Football League. As I mentioned, we're now into the fall, man. And so now we're starting to see teams separate themselves, what they say, the pretenders from the contenders. So we'll see how this thing unfolds. Once again, man, I appreciate all the love and the feedback. I appreciate your ear. We on Fire Sports Podcast, the spot.